What do you get when you throw a pandemic into an advanced society? The birthing of a pointless podcast. We are the neighbors upstairs. What's going on, neighbors? It's the neighbor on the left here with you, and the neighbor on the right is joining me, and Alex Garret from Alex Garret Podcasting. He's a longtime friend of mine. I've known him since like the early years of college. Alex Garret, how are you, sir?
Neighbors, how are you doing? Neighbor on the right,
Welcome.
neighbor on the left.
Welcome.
I enjoyed having the neighbor on the left in my virtual apartment the other day. That was a pretty good conversation. So thanks for joining.
It was so fun.
And it was so in-depth, and then that's what we crave as podcasters, right? In-depth conversation. So let me first, where do I start? Because even in the last day or so, I felt such an energy shift that has impacted my podcasting. So I moved all my studio from one end of my room to the other. And this is important to me because it felt like I was freeing myself from whatever energy was there before to a newer kind of thing. And now I come back to this podcast and say, since then, things have really looked up for the podcast itself. So have you guys ever had that where the energy just shifts you to a way where you have to literally organize everything, like reorganize everything? It happened to me yesterday.
Like the feng shui, right? It's like
Yep.
There's a weird feeling. I definitely have felt that before. I think I change stuff around my apartment all the time. So I totally get that.
And just a brief background, neighbor on the left and I were on WQMC, I think at the same time and at different times. You know, it was a little time period there where it was just different, but we were both on there. And I think we're proud WQMC alums, wouldn't you say?
I would absolutely say that. I think that my love for, not really podcasting, just that my love for being on the air has grown from there. You know, you start to learn a little bit about yourself, how you do with other people, and just the friends that I made there. Hey, I'm talking to you because of WQMC. I'm talking to you because of those experiences.
And I got to give a shout out to them, all of them, because you know what they did? They took us, and I don't know if it was freshman year you did your show, but they took me as a young freshman into their studio and said, we're gonna work with you on this. And I was surprised at first because like this is a college radio station. How are they going to give a freshman? But they do. They give those kids a start, and I'm very thankful for that.
Absolutely. I think I was a sophomore, and I was just like fresh off of listening to Howard Stern and Opie and Anthony, my heroes of the past. I don't know if I could say that now, but my heroes of the past. And I just wanted to kind of emulate that in any way I could possibly. And I think myself and the co-hosts, we did that sort of. But yeah, a huge shout out to WQMC. And I hope whoever is listening to us from there can at least appreciate the fact that we remember, and we always will.
Amen to that. Neighbor on the right, to be honest with you, I don't remember you from campus as much. I mean, did you go to Queens as well?
Yeah, I went to Queens as well. I definitely think that we probably crossed paths a couple of times, at random moments. But Alex, something that kind of hit me really profoundly about your shift in the way you arranged your room was realizing that I think that points to how powerful self-awareness is, in the sense that whether it's how your apartment may be arranged or how we are experiencing a given environment, even if it's a temporary one, or how we're experiencing a conversation, a phone call, there's always that undercurrent of how we're evaluating and judging. And the more we can be self-aware about how we are doing that, and the more we can take that step back to witness how the stimulus is affecting us, the more we can have the power to just make the situation the best for us.
So I'm amazed that you said that, because how that started for me was my stepdad and I, we were hanging out in the backyard watching a new bird bath that we installed. And he said, you know what, whenever you go to the window and see it, let me know if the birds are at the bird bath. For some reason, guys, that phrase, when you go to the window, just made me literally go right next to my window at a podcast. There was some calling there that I did that. And you talk about feng shuiing your apartments and feng shuiing life. Unfortunately, I think people spend too much money on like the experts, and that's not a bad thing. But what if we could do it self-sufficiently? Like, what if we could finally realize in ourselves, hey, we need to move stuff around? I think that would help us a lot, in addition to maybe paying for a feng shui expert.
Well, it's also very subjective, right? Of what is a feng shui expert? It's someone that through their experiences has decided what the best arrangement in a space is. Well, that's their experience. What we need internally might be completely different. I think that just being able to change things around your life or perhaps even inside your mind means that you've built that kind of self-awareness over the years and trust, right? The fact that you, Alex, have decided and something kind of just hit your mind in a different way. Your stepdad saying the window and you're like, wait, hold on. Let me just wait. Whoa, there's a window right there.
Yeah.
Why am I not looking out the window?
And or why am I not next to it? Yeah.
Why not next to it? Yeah. So that's really cool.
When he said that, my brain automatically looked at me where I was looking out the window. And I'm like, I don't have to be that far back when I can move everything right to the window. Why not just do that? And so here we are. And if you notice, neighbor on the left, how much lighter it is because I'm here and not back next to the bookshelf. I think. Oh,
I remember. Yeah, I definitely remember. You, I wasn't complaining, man. I got to see my boy Alex. And here he is. But here he is now, and I can see him even better. So that's really cool. And now I can see the chair that you're sitting on. It looks really, really comfortable. What is that?
There's a light that's hitting that's so much more impactful. So I was happy about that. Now, the podcast. How proud are you guys of your podcast that you can't take any criticism, that you don't understand why someone would actually say, hey, this might be wrong, or hey, this should be reevaluated? Do you ever feel like, well, what are you telling me that for? You know?
I think that I am my biggest critic. I believe that Righty is the same way in those regards. You know what? I don't want to even speak for him. What do you think, Righty? Are you pretty critical of yourself, would you say?
Of course. I mean, I'm the one that is constantly evaluating myself. No one else is doing that for me.
Right.
So like, obviously, I'm my biggest critic.
It's a lot of rinse and repeat. Right. There's a lot of introspection and awareness there. So I think that if people are giving me some sort of criticism, I will take it. I'll take it in stride. I actually enjoy criticism. I don't mind it at all, as long as it's constructive and it isn't just empty. So what does that mean, right? If you're just going to be like, it sucks, that doesn't mean anything to me. Why does it suck? What is it? Is it the way I speak? Is it the way I ask a question? What's going on? Tell me more. If you just give me some sort of blank statement, I can't do anything with that. And it's much easier to sling shit in someone's idea than actually try to improve it. I'm a huge fan of slinging shit with perhaps construction bricks around it. Let's rebuild it. Let's rebuild the building that I built really poorly. So,
well, and I'm glad you set me up for that, because here's the thing, guys. Today I woke up, did my regular pod, and then I'm going to do another one with I'm going to have aired an interview with the man who's creating the George Floyd Memorial Sports Complex in Houston, Sarah White. Pretty incredible stuff to go and listen to. But after all that's done, I get, these comments on a podcast I did last week on childbirth and how I want to reduce mortality rates of women who have just had their baby. And I want to reduce the death rate of babies that are just born, premature babies and stillbirths. I want to find a way to reduce that. But she's in the community. She's in the OBGYN community. And she laid out all the reasons why she was, really upset with the way I had went about it. And the number one thing was I only used one source. So I had lowered my, I had humbled myself. I said, okay, this isn't cancel culture. This isn't, a mob telling you to close. This is one person who cares about her field and wants a better conversation and wants me to do more than one source researching, which I should know, but sometimes in the heat of the moment, right? We want to go for what we know and what we see in front of us. So those criticisms led me to literally take down one of my recent episodes, and we're going to rebuild it for a better conversation. And I think that recognition that it's okay to not go too far with it. Like, I don't want to see Paw Patrol canceled. That's so stupid. But in our own lives, right? If we don't go with the right sourcing, maybe we should evaluate how our podcast went that day. Should we really take it down and just build it up again with a bigger, better base?
I want to give you props and I want to give her props. There was a conversation that was built there, right? Yes. There was reasonable disagreement. And you know what? Look, she's probably right. And you know what? I come from more of a science background, and I would say she is right. One source is enough. Let's build it a little bit more. Let's really back up our claims or whatever. But the fact that you were listening, that you were aware of said criticism, again, major props. You really have to be aware. You really have to be aware to receive that kind of messaging, and not to look at it as an attack, because someone that might not know well enough, or perhaps doesn't have as much, I want to say, confidence in the first place, might take it poorly. Like, oh, I'm trying at least, but you handle it really, really well. And I'm looking forward to listening to that episode too.
Oh, and it's going to take a while, because that conversation can't be had in one day, so it's going to take a a bit of a time to rebuild that, but I
Which
do
is
want to have it.
exactly why I want to. That's a thing, though. Now that I know that there's a lot of work going into it, a lot of effort, and you're taking your time with it, I want to know more now. I want to know more about it. I want to see how it all comes together.
And I think maybe you guys have this feeling too, but I think this quarantine has put us all in a sense of awareness that we weren't in before. I mean, look, you guys started this podcast because of the quarantine. So obviously there was an awareness that you guys were starting to feel that maybe you didn't when we were all on the go before, as of February.
I think one of the biggest things that I've learned during the pandemic is the importance of vitamin D. And there is something really fucking magical about, just standing outside and it's a beautiful 70-degree day, pretty sunny. And there's something just so primal and ecstatic about feeling sunlight. And and there's a reason why, there have been cultures or people or individuals who, and at times I feel that way, just look at the sun like a god or a goddess, because there is something so vital about it to our health and to us not being indoors, living the life of a person in a cubicle and then being home in your house all day. And the sun really does pull to us. And unfortunately, it's even been shown in the disparity for how poorly some people did with regards to contracting coronavirus, because I think over 80% of people who had to be hospitalized very severely were people who were significantly deficient in vitamin D.
Yeah, get those vitamin D, guys. Get that. I mean, I'm on the vitamin D supplements. I've always been low on vitamin D. Yeah, the sun is definitely a god. I don't know.
And not only that, the sun was made by God, right? I mean, that's the big part of this. Is
For
he
sure.
created the sun and the moon. So I know that on a cloudy day when the sun's peeking through, that's him.
And can I tell you something? I was listening to a podcast. I don't remember which one. And they were talking about how in the future, there's going to be this idea of building some sort of artificial habitat built around the sun. And they call it the Dyson Sphere.
I got to look that one up.
Yeah. And I'm reading this straight from Google. It is intended to capture as much as possible of the power output of the star and should be a distinctive characteristic of a civilization able to control the resources of a planetary system. Endless energy, right? That's insane. So
Dyson,
yes,
wow,
a Dyson Sphere.
Wasn't Dyson like the one that came up with the creative thing with like the testing? I think earlier in the Corona, I think so. The company Dyson. So now we've got the Dyson Sphere. So
It's been around for a little while, but just to think about like this thing built around the sun. What kind of civilization, just how much more do you need to advance to get to that point? And then once you get to that point, now you control this boundless energy coming from the sun, right? What does that open up our civilization to? That's kind of why
Elon Musk is going to do on Mars.
I don't know. I think this is what you probably might need. I think you might need something like a Dyson Sphere to have enough energy to really kind of start controlling the system around you, right? The problem with going to a Mars or, further down to another planet, millions of light years away, is we don't have the energy, right? We don't have the energy to just set up bases everywhere we go. But with this energy, you can kind of, I guess, transport it from planet to planet and do with it what you will, grow the civilization more. It's insane.
I mean, that is so interesting. And what Elon has been doing is just incredible. And Mars is going to be fun. But I wanted to backtrack on the Corona for a second. I have to believe the guys that were up in space now, the astronauts that successfully launched, were tested for COVID, right? Because I was thinking to myself, what happens if those two gals up in the space station get it? What happens if the space station gets COVID? And I don't think it's going to happen, but I mean, it was just a weird thought that hit my head.
No, I mean, I'm sure they're tested daily,
Yep.
Probably before going on to the mission, for sure. I can't even imagine a scenario where they forgot to get tested.
But it's so weird that in the time of COVID, those two people were like the first two in space during COVID. So I'm sure they got tested, but it is kind of interesting to think about in my viewpoint anyway.
You're reminding me of how the difference between how UFC events relaunched in Jacksonville and then in Las Vegas. Las Vegas has been a little bit more strict, which has kind of bugged me a little bit, because what ends up happening is that to be a part of the event, everyone has to test negative. And anytime they had someone test positive, they were sent home. But if you have, let's say, even a house party, and part of you being allowed in is that you've tested negative, then once everyone in the house is tested negative, what's the point of still trying to enact restrictions if you're all negative?
Why are you still wearing a mask?
Yeah, I mean, the people in the fighters' corners will still have masks, and Nevada, Las Vegas, they didn't let them do even in-person interviews, even though they're both people who tested negative.
Well,
There's no
false
possible
positives.
transmission.
Well, I mean,
between
false
negative people.
positives though. That's for sure a thing though. False positives is something you need to consider. Yes, they were
But also
tested.
and those happened at the time where it was still heated, right? So COVID was still really ramping up, and to the point where having a live sports event was so groundbreaking because it was still during COVID. So I think that was part of it too. It was the timing of it, not so much the fear. It was just timing of, in the heat of COVID, we're having this UFC event. Yeah, it was kind of weird with no fans at all, but they didn't want to take a risk, I guess.
But I think it's also the optics, no? Isn't it also the optics? Like,
yep.
Can you
I
imagine?
think that's the only reason why they made that decision.
Right. It's they don't want that public outcry. People that might not know any better. And I'm not trying to knock the people, but people might look at it and be like, well, what's going on here? They're not. See Dana White. Who does he support? Trump. He supports Trump. And you see ignorance. That's what I'm talking about. It's an optics thing. I feel that's probably why they did it. And that's why when there's a winner, I think there's someone in the corner that isn't wearing a mask. There's always like that one or two guys, right? Do you notice that?
Yeah,
I don't really watch, but you guys, I guess, would know better. But neighbor on the right, I have a story for you guys, which I don't know if you heard or not. You mentioned house parties. There was still an a-hole, I guess I can say asshole, but I don't. You
can say asshole.
Much, in New York City, throwing potluck dinners during this thing. He was 31 years old. He was like a bratty millennial. You could tell on his feet he's a bratty millennial. And he was throwing these parties, and it's like, and then clubs were still allowing people in, and it just was like, I thought we were all supposed to be inside. How come the cops aren't necessarily cracking down on these things, but they're cracking down on someone if they don't wear a mask? It just, there were so many alternate realities I was starting to feel like, which reality are we in? The one that has the potluck lunches or the ones that's locked in? I don't know. And where I judge that is what's being prosecuted and what's not. If these parties aren't being prosecuted, yet you're not wearing a mask, and that is, then what reality should we be in? It's very confusing to me.
I'm also confused. So what happened? Like, is this kid still throwing these potluck dinners or
I don't know. Parties? He's I can't really share the screen, but I would say it was a 31-year-old in Manhattan, Upper East Side. I think bratty rich kid. Maybe there's nothing wrong with it, but when you start throwing parties during this, I start to think you have a little issue.
Yeah, look, here's the thing. It's really confusing what's going on. I don't know what to believe. I don't know what not to believe. Some said that, the chance of you getting something from someone that is asymptomatic is very, very low. I think that was the World Health Organization saying that. And then Fauci literally, I think the next day is like, oh no, that's a lie. They misspoke. I don't know what to believe anymore. Is this 31-year-old,
And the biggest farce of all, if you guys would allow me to say this, is that we were all locked in while they were allowed to protest. It still boggles my mind that they could flood the streets, which they have the right. But I thought the anti-lockdown protests were bad because of that same.
Well, Cuomo and de Blasio, they're getting sued right now.
Mm-hmm.
They're getting sued by, I think, religious communities that were, I guess, penalized or punished in some sort of way because they were trying to, celebrate or do something according to their religion. And
mourn losses too, have funerals.
Yeah.
They were doing.
I mean, yeah, you can't go to a funeral where even just your immediate family, where you can be out there, even if necessary, with a mask and gloves, just to do something, as important as burying a loved one. But thousands of people can protest, and now public health people will sycophantically just talk about how, it's a public health crisis, and now all of a sudden it's good. And yet these are the same people who are saying how coronavirus has unfortunately disproportionately affected the Black community, and now they're excusing what could potentially hurt the Black community even more.
Right, alternate realities. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense at all.
Neighbor on the left, since we last talked, I know you were saying you were still going to stay inside and stay safe. Have you broken that yet, or are you still doing that?
So since the last time, I don't believe I've broken it. I mean, the only reason I would break it is to shop for food because I want to live and everything. That's an important thing.
But you haven't gone to bars or anything either, I guess.
No, I'm not going to bars, and I still haven't went on physical dates. There's just no point yet. Again, if you remember what I said to you, if I can't speak to someone for 1 month and enjoy communication, I don't see the point of rushing meeting that person. You know what I mean? So I think that this has been a good and bad thing. And it's definitely been a bad thing, but it's been an interesting thing to see. Like, is communication really dead, or is it alive? Is it coming back? Well, like, what's happening? I've been talking more on the phone That's
Yeah.
been really cool. People
Yeah.
are getting tired of texting. They're getting tired of the screen fatigue. They want their eyes to kind of heal and relax. So now it's going to the phone. That's kind of exciting. What do you think, Alex?
Oh, I love it. And I think it's exciting because how much do we base our lives off the texting right now? I feel like people who weren't open to having phone calls are now open to it because of the situation. And I'm very happy about that because you need that, especially when you're apart and you've got daily duties and then you want to talk on the phone and talk about the game plan. That's good. Like, that's what we need. Texting can lead to a lot of miscommunication and whatnot.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I appreciate texting. Sometimes I don't want to speak to a certain person and I'd rather you just say, hey, what's up? And then I can just ignore you for like 2 hours and then get back to you. But for the most part, I'm loving it. I'm loving the whole phone rebirth, talking to people, and then kind of really finding out about people. My sister was talking to me about how like she's realizing certain people are great with texting. They're just so great. They built up this personality, this persona, this front stage kind of character. They're just so great. But then you get them on the phone and that all disappears. The facade just drops, right? So you really are starting to understand who the hell you're speaking to. Am I speaking to the real you, or am I speaking to someone that you created on text? So I think that's been really exciting.
I want to compliment you both, by the way, on that interview with the quarantine dating, which is kind of like where I want a neighbor on the left and neighbor on the right. You're welcome to come on as well. Maybe both of you back on my pod would be awesome.
I would love that.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I think Righty listened to there was this one episode where Denise Richardson interviewed you. I just know that I recommended the episode to Righty, and he was kind of like, holy shit, that's what? So yeah, we would love to be on your show. Meet for a second time. That'd be great.
Would love to have both. And to the point that was that the quarantine dating episode was really eye opening. It was like, whoa, this girl you had was not afraid to go out and meet this person. What is going on? I thought we were not supposed to do that.
And that's exactly what's happening. We have to somehow adapt to the situation, and that's how she adapted. She realized, listen, I can't keep talking to you on the phone. I can't keep texting you. I need to know who you are. Are you who you say you are, right? Catfishing is still a huge problem, right? I mean, have you guys ever seen an episode of Catfish? It's insane.
Yeah.
I try and not watch it, but
way back in the day.
Dude, it's so insane. But here's the thing. It's always funny to me when I watch it because the person getting catfished, they aren't any better because, first of all, they don't even look like how they have themselves in the pictures. There's like this one episode that I'm thinking about in particular when they get fooled and they find out that they've been catfished. And it's like, dude, this is the pot calling the kettle black.
That's why I love the neighbor on the left. He goes after every part of society that doesn't make sense. And I love that.
Speaking of not making sense and the worry of, events with people crammed in, not socially distancing, not using masks, and worrying about that being some sort of a super spreader event. There was that Lake of Ozarks party in Missouri where the photos were very alarming, but apparently this week a Missouri health official said that they don't believe that much transmission happened at that party. So,
and what I said was, I thought this was supposed to spread like wildfire. What happened to that theory? It was debunked in one instance there.
And I mean, Joe Rogan, I remember when he had a doctor on, and the doctor, I forgot what the doctor was, but this doctor, he really made Joe Rogan kind of panic. I think Joe Rogan almost had a panic attack on that episode. But that's what it is, man. We don't know what this is. We don't know what the coronavirus disease is. We're learning more about it every single day. The World Health Organization is completely unreliable. I don't listen to anything that they say. I'm just paying attention to the collective, I guess.
But we have to pay attention to what the CDC says because they're about to lock us down. They say they could lock us down again. And I'm like, again?
I mean, I think based on the data, I think we do have some sort of a picture, which I think is that it really affects old people, especially those in nursing homes, who have been almost 50% of the deaths. B, being at least 60 and having an underlying health condition puts you at risk more significantly. And C, it does not really seem to affect young and healthy people.
No, it doesn't. I don't know the exact.
Well, I actually do know someone that is in our age range that was affected by it. And it was kind of like, I guess, a cold. That's how she described it to me. But her boss and her boss's wife died from it. And it wasn't as if they were really, really old. They were, I think, in their 40s or something.
So that's where we have to tread the fine line, right? Like, we can't completely debunk it, but we can certainly say stats may be overblown here, right?
It's a little weird. Yeah, it's a little weird. I think everyone is looking for the black and white answer, but you're not going to get that. There's just too many variables to consider. It's just too many things. We don't know. And there's so many people.
Mm-hmm.
Are we at 400 million Americans yet?
I don't know. I don't think so.
But my point is, like, and even if we do find the black and white, and there's something that kind of ties it all together, you're talking about 400 million Americans all taking direction in a beautiful manner, which is impossible. That's never going to happen. I mean, look at our country now. It's falling apart pretty much. No one's listening to each other. So even if we had that, even if there were these step-by-step of rule book of what to do, what not to do, and what the coronavirus actually is, are we all listening? Do we have hope in civilization, or within this country at least, to listen and pay attention and help ourselves? Right. Really.
So true. It's just, okay. Well, what if they allowed protests to go on knowing the numbers would increase just to give us a reason to keep us locked down? I do feel like there's some strange correlation to that.
To perhaps control elections later on?
To definitely say, oh, look, here's a second wave. Well, how'd that happen? You let the protesters go. You didn't say what you said.
But the media will ignore that. You know that. The media is not going to blame the protesters.
And that's why we exist, to give the alternative view, right? That's why we exist.
Right. That's exactly right. So media, for sure. I mean, you could say for sure liberal media is not going to allow protesters to take the blame. But you're for sure going to have a conservative media that will push that.
And they shouldn't, though. Neither side should blame the protesters.
Neither side should blame the protesters. Something terrible happened.
We shouldn't conflate criminal activity such as looting, property destruction, or hurting other humans as being. We should not conflate that as someone doing that is not a protester.
No, they're just douchebags.
Well, right. And
they're criminals.
Well,
and they should be taken off the street.
They made that distinction very clear. And I think it's
not really, though. The liberal media seems to, and even the celebrities seem to be fine and even happy to cover for these people.
Well, they're funding.
To the point of saying that police or National Guard or even the military should not get in the way of these people doing these actions.
Or how about this? Why don't we have a study, if we could, of rioting initiation against the cops versus cops initiation against protesters? Like, there's a disparity there. I don't believe every interaction was caused by the police. I have to believe there were some agitators that led them to act the way they were and what we saw on camera.
100% agreed.
The right way is simply this. We don't worry about the anarchists in Seattle right now taking over 7 city blocks in Seattle, which I'm sure by the time this is posted will be the same situation. I don't know. We'll have to see how that goes. But what we could do on our podcasts is focus on other situations that really, detract from those attentions. Because when we don't focus on that, that'll resolve itself, right? We're not going to Seattle to try and resolve it. That's going to resolve itself. So we need to use our podcast in a way that can resolve local issues, that can really bring a conversation and not complain about what's in Seattle. We can't control that. Heck, we can't even control the rioters. We just see it. We can't control it. So what we can control is just something in our heart that eats at us, that wants to put on the microphone every single day. That's what we could talk about.
I think it's a great way to end this episode. I think that I for sure want you to come back again, Alex. And we
didn't even get to the fact that you're upset I'm wearing a Jet jersey today.
No,
we got to talk
about
that.
And that's why we want you back.
Cool. Don't listen to him.
That's exactly why we want you back, because we haven't even talked about what you're wearing, which is, come on, Giants, let's go.
And
the Jets are wrong.
And 20 years ago marks a very special time in August, which I don't know if you want to talk about on the next one, but we should.
I loved having you here. I want to say thank you to everyone out there that's listening. Again, if you've been enjoying this show, please subscribe, follow, tell someone about it, please, because we love doing this and we're having fun. Righty, as always, it's been a pleasure.
Oh, yeah.
And Alex Garret,
yes, sir,
from Alex Garret Podcasting. God bless you, sir. Thank you for being on with us. We can't wait to be on your show soon and kind of continue the conversation. And Alex, before we go, do you want to plug anything?
Well, sure. You can find Alex Garret Podcasting on Apple Podcasts. It's Alex Garret, I think, is my main name there. Alex G in NYC is my Twitter. Alex G in NYC is my Twitter and Instagram, and on Facebook at Real Alex Garret. So there's that. But I got to leave you guys with this one question. Will you still be my neighbor? tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Hell yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. I love
Guys, thank you so much. Have a great one, and we shall continue this next week.